My name is Nelly Dean. I have lived on the wild moors all my life. The wind here never rests. It moves over the hills like a living thing. The sky is often grey, and the sound of the wind feels like a song full of old memories. When I was young, I worked as a servant at a large house called Wuthering Heights. Later, I also worked at another home, Thrushcross Grange. In those houses, I saw many things: love, hate, anger, and pain. But I also saw kindness, hope, and the power of time. This is my story. When I first came to Wuthering Heights, the house stood tall and strong on its lonely hill. The wind blew hard against its walls, but it never broke. Mr. Earnshaw was the master then. He lived there with his wife and 2 children, Hindley and Catherine. Hindley was proud, but Catherine was wild and full of life. She ran, laughed, and played outside in the mud. She was not afraid of anything. I loved her like my own child. One day Mr. Earnshaw went to the city on a long trip. When he came back, he brought a small, dark-haired boy. The child looked poor and hungry. His clothes were torn, and his eyes were full of fear. Mr. Earnshaw said, "This boy was alone in the street. His name is Heathcliff. I will care for him as my own." From that day, Heathcliff became part of our family. But not everyone was happy. Mrs. Earnshaw did not like the strange boy, and Hindley became jealous. He could not stand that his father loved Heathcliff more than him. Catherine, however, was different. She liked Heathcliff immediately. The 2 became inseparable. They played together from morning till night, ran across the moors, climbed rocks, and shouted into the wind. They were wild and free, like 2 young wolves. Mr. Earnshaw grew old and sick. Before he died, he still loved Heathcliff more than Hindley. When the old man passed away, Hindley became the new master of the house, and everything changed. He sent Heathcliff to work outside with the servants, treating him like dirt. Heathcliff said nothing. His eyes grew cold, and his heart became hard. Catherine was angry at her brother, but she still secretly met Heathcliff. They talked, laughed, and dreamed of a life far from Wuthering Heights. She said, "One day we will be free, Heathcliff. We will run and never come back." He smiled and said, "I will never leave you, Cathy. You are my heart." One night, Catherine and Heathcliff walked far from the house. They reached Thrushcross Grange, a big, beautiful home where the Linton family lived. Their dog saw her and bit her leg. Catherine cried out, and the Lintons came to help. She stayed there for weeks. When she returned home, she was changed. Her clothes were new, her hair was clean, and she spoke softly like a lady. Heathcliff looked at her and felt pain. "You have changed, Cathy," he said. "Only on the outside, Heathcliff. Inside I am still me," she replied. But deep down she was no longer the wild girl who ran through the rain. Soon Edgar Linton began, visiting Wuthering Heights. He was kind, gentle, and rich. Catherine liked his calm ways. Hindley was pleased because Edgar came from a fine family. Heathcliff, however, felt forgotten. He worked outside all day, his hands dirty, his heart full of anger. One evening, Catherine spoke to me privately. "Nelly, I love Heathcliff, but I can never marry him. He is poor and has no name. If I marry him, we would be lost." "But you love him, my dear?" I asked. "Yes, I do. But if I marry Edgar, I can help Heathcliff. I can make him strong." That night, Heathcliff overheard only the first part, that she could not marry him. He did not hear the rest. His face turned pale, and without a word, he disappeared into the dark. Catherine cried out across the moors, but he was gone. For 3 days she waited. Then Edgar came again and asked her to marry him. She agreed, but her heart was not full of joy. She said if Heathcliff ever returned, she would be happy again. Catherine married Edgar and moved to Thrushcross Grange. Life there was calm and gentle. Edgar loved her deeply, and she tried to love him in return. But sometimes Catherine looked out the window toward the moors, missing the wild hills, the wind, and the boy who had vanished into the night. 3 years later, on a stormy evening, a man appeared at the door. His face was pale, his eyes dark and deep. For a moment I could not speak. It was Heathcliff. He had returned taller, stronger, and dressed like a gentleman. Catherine ran to him with tears in her eyes. "Oh, Heathcliff, why did you leave me?" she cried. "You said I was nothing," he said. "I went away to become something." "You are more than everything to me," she whispered. Edgar saw them together and grew cold. He knew Catherine's heart had never fully belonged to him. Heathcliff smiled slightly, but his eyes held a darker purpose. He visited often, yet his heart was full of sadness and anger. Hindley had fallen into ruin. Heathcliff lent him money not to help, but to take everything later. Slowly the house became Heathcliff's. Catherine began to fall ill. One night she said to me, "Nelly, my heart feels broken between two worlds. I love Edgar, but Heathcliff is part of my soul. How can I live like this?" One stormy night, Heathcliff came to her bedside. "Why did you leave me?" she whispered. "You killed me when you went away." "I never stopped loving you," he said. Before long, Catherine passed away. Heathcliff cried out like a wild animal. From that moment, he was never the same. Wuthering Heights grew colder. The servants left one by one. Only Cathy, Hareton, and I stayed. Heathcliff took everything: Wuthering Heights, Thrushcross Grange, Hindley's land. But his heart remained empty. Time passed. Cathy and Hareton began to bring light back into the house. Cathy taught Hareton to read and write. Slowly the house woke from its long, sad dream. Cathy and Hareton planted flowers, cleaned the rooms, and opened windows to let fresh air in. The smell of bread and roses filled the house. One morning they stood by Catherine and Heathcliff's graves. Cathy whispered softly, "Mother, you can rest now. We will take care of this place." From that day, Cathy and Hareton were never apart. They laughed, worked together, and filled Wuthering Heights with life. I sometimes sit by the fire and watch them, feeling joy for the first time in years. The house is alive again. The wind still blows across the moors, but now it whispers gently, like the hills themselves singing a song of peace. Thank you for listening to this story. If you enjoyed it, please like the video, subscribe, and stay with English Medium Stories for more classic tales in easy English.